most destructive pieces of legislation in history. All to fund huge benefits that will disproportionately go to the very top. They're ripping away healthcare, food benefits for millions of Americans. I'll show you Trump being confronted about this. Really, as he was doing this press conference, or around this time, the bill was passing the Senate. So Trump's whole agenda just got through that big hurdle, and now it's in the House. And my question to you, if you're thinking, well, maybe Marjorie Taylor Greene will stop it. Do you think that House Republicans will all of a sudden find their spine after all this time? I doubt it. And so I'm pretty much expecting that very soon Trump will be signing this into law. And we have a lot to look at. All of these Republicans are utterly panicked about how they're going to defend this. They just don't want to defy Trump. Trump doesn't even know how he's going to defend it. He's just been lying. But what's going to become an iconic example, bad iconic, is Lisa Murkowski, who was a deciding vote. It was 50-50 was the vote. Of course, all Democrats voted against it, and 50 Republicans voted for it, and then J.D. Vance had to break the tie. And Lisa Murkowski was one of those final votes. And when she was confronted about it, she just stared silently for like 10 full seconds. That's how badly they are defending this catastrophe. So let's start with Trump. In Florida, he's visiting this new detention camp that we talked about in the morning show, and got asked, and he just can't create a coherent justification.
And just to be clear on the Medicaid cuts, you've promised not to cut Medicaid, said this is all just targeting waste, fraud, and abuse. Are you saying that the estimated 11.8 million people who could lose their health coverage, that is all waste, fraud, and abuse?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying it's going to be a very much smaller number than that, and that number will be waste, fraud, and abuse. And if you look, they took a much more liberal stance on the Medicaid situation than they could have. They had a tough stance and a weak stance. They took not a very strong stance on that to start off, and it's waste, fraud, and abuse, and everybody wants that covered.
What number is that? What analysis are you seeing?
I'm not.
Okay, these reporters need to stop asking the question this way. It is absolutely 100% proven that just folks who absolutely deserve this program will be ripped off of it. 12, 13, 14, 15 million people. So the question shouldn't be, are you saying, based on the analyses that you've seen, are you saying that it'll only be waste, fraud? It's just asking that, like, hey, are you seeing analysis that the earth is truly flat? Like, what? It's not reasonable even to ask the question that way, with all due respect to the reporter.
Is that covered?
What number is that? What analysis are you seeing?
I'm not seeing a number, but I know it's much less than the number you gave. And we really were very, very cognizant of three things. Social Security, we're going to take care of it beautifully. Medicare and Medicaid. And we are going to save it.
We're going to save it by killing... I'm going to save your dog by breaking its neck. That's how I'm going to save it. That's what they're doing with Medicaid. Well, the most updated number out of the Senate, $930 billion, was it? Over a decade being ripped out? You think there's $930 billion worth of whatever the myth is? We went over yesterday an example. I'm not going to talk about Donna again. I promise. So then, okay, Trump can't defend it. Let's see one of the deciding votes if she can. For weeks, Ms. Murkowski, the moderate fourth-term senator who has criticized Mr. Trump, has long been a swing vote, and she was convinced to vote for it and said it was painful. It was painful, but she had to. I had to break your golden retriever's neck. I'm sorry, because that's the only way I could get goodies for Alaska. Ms. Murkowski wielded a unique lever with party leaders to insist on changes and got a bunch of goodies, as the New York Times describes it, including a provision that would allow certain Alaskan whaling captains to deduct more of their expenses. If you lose your health care and you blame Lisa Murkowski, as you should, blame Trump the most, blame J.D. Vance the second because he was the real tiebreaker, and blame Murkowski and blame all the Republicans who voted for it. But if you find yourself, your life ruined, just know that Alaskan whaling captains now can deduct more of their expenses. So maybe you should stop complaining, is what I think. Now watch Murkowski confronted about this by NBC. This is like nothing I've ever seen. While you're watching, please do, if you appreciate the show, click the subscribe button. Super important. It's free, and it helps so very much.
Out there. Senator Paul said that that your vote was a bailout for Alaska at the expense of the rest of the country.
Oh my God.
That's what Senator Paul said.
So now, podcast listeners, she's just standing, staring at the reporter.
I didn't say it, ma'am. I'm just asking for your response.
My response is I have an obligation to the people of the state of Alaska. And I live up to that every single day. I fight for my state's interests, and I make sure that Alaskans are understood. I work hard.
Lisa, this is giving hostage energy. I voted for this bill because it... Does Trump have footage of you at a freak off? Lisa, are you being blackmailed? Blink twice if you're being blackmailed. Oh no, she didn't blink at all. Her eyes were wide open. Her eyes were wide open during this. She just death stare. And I think the headline from this New York Times piece was Murkowski casts decisive vote, making quote unquote agonizing choice. So here would be her argument. It's a terrible bill. She admits it's terrible. It's agonizing. She's agonized, but the whaling captains need their extra expenses deducted, which if you're a whaling captain, I love that for you. But you also might be on Medicaid, so maybe we just do a bill without the Medicaid part and the whaling part. Great. I love whales. They're going a little loco lately, but I like them still. But she would say it was going to pass. I might as well vote for it so that I can use that leverage to get provisions that benefit Alaskans, even though Alaskans will be hurt by the bill too. But that's not true because it's not like, well, they wanted my vote. It was going to pass anyways, and they agreed to give me some goodies if I gave my name to voting for it. No, it wouldn't have passed without her. It would not have passed without her and the other 49 and JD Vance. So she could have just killed the bill and then advocated in some future version of it for whatever the heck it is that she wanted. This is the same Lisa Murkowski who we recently looked at going, people say that Trump's authoritarian, and I think my question is it authoritarian? Is it Trump being Trump? And the way I see it is he definitely is doing authoritarian things. But is he authoritarian? That's tough. I can't say that he's authoritarian. Imagine if I actually Morse code did something with my eyes. That would be epic. I don't know Morse code. Don't look into it too much. I might have said something very strange. Then here's an economist, Justin Wolfer is one of our faves here, summing up this bill.
It concerns me because the starting point already is very, very bad. The budget deficit in the United States is higher than at any point in our history until the financial crisis. And then we had the twin crises of the global financial crisis and COVID that really blew things out of the water. But it's currently at a level that our parents had never heard of. And then this bill will add to the deficit quite substantially. What worries me as a person, not just an economist, is the outright dishonesty about what's going on. There's some tricky accounting going on to try and pretend otherwise, but the CBO is the nonpartisan scorekeeper, and it says, and it's absolutely right, I've looked at the figures, that this is going to blow out the deficit. It's going to raise the debt, and that in turn will raise interest rates for all the folks who are watching at home. So next time you go to take a mortgage, a car loan, repay your credit card, and you see the interest rate has snuck up a bit, you can thank Congress for that.
So what do we... In a moment like this, what do we do? Let's see, friend of the show, David Packman. What do we do, David?
We're doing coal.
What? Producer Cole? What are you talking about, David? No, we speak up. Because here's the damning truth. A lot of people... Medicaid goes by different names in states. That's an important thing. So a lot of people will lose their coverage and go, I lost my coverage, and won't even connect the dots. Not because of, they don't know, but just because it goes by some other name in their state where the funding goes to the health program in the state. That is the Medicaid program. And So people need to connect those dots. You've seen stories of this in the past where it was Republicans' fault for not allowing for the Affordable Care Act to benefit some of their constituents, but the constituents blamed Obama for it. So we need to connect those dots. This question you're going to hear Jamie Raskin get asked sounds silly from the CNN host, but actually it's a very salient question.
My question to start for you, and you heard Congressman McGovern there, are you confident that Democrats can convince Americans that the impacts of this bill are Republicans' fault? That is a messaging challenge.
So it sounds silly, right? What do you mean, can Democrats convince Americans it's Republicans' fault for their bill? That sounds incoherent. No, who else would Americans blame? Literally anyone. We've learned Republicans are really good at doing things and getting their constituents to blame who? Think of it. You know it. Trans immigrants.
Well, look, it's a total party line vote, except that they can't even hang on to all the Republicans. So you've got Senator Tom Tillis from North Carolina, who's essentially surrendering his political career because he can't go along with throwing hundreds of thousands of people in his state off of their health care plan. I mean, you've got Lisa Murkowski, who basically said the only way I'll vote for it is if you cut Alaska out and they deal her a special exemption from the effects of the bill. So it is a horrific bill that is targeted at taking health care away from 16 or 17 million Americans, 14 million in Medicaid and millions more in the Affordable Care Act and in Medicare in different ways, and millions.
Yeah, I mean, people are going to die. People are going to die because of this decision. Mark Warner said, I'm tired of my Republican colleagues telling me in private how they feel about this terrible bill. It's time to vote like it. This happens a lot. You'll hear Democrat. I get you can't reveal private conversations or whatever, but you'll hear people go, all the Republicans acknowledge this is crazy. Sort of like that moment that Liz Cheney recounted where she heard someone while they were voting to deny the election results. The person go, what we do for Orange Jesus? And it adds a layer to it because like sometimes I'll hear Robert F. Kennedy Jr. talk. I just can't.
I started doing heroin when I went to the top of my class.
Sometimes I'll hear him talk about stuff like that, and I'll think he believes some of what he's saying. He also lies in service of what he believes, but he believes a lot of the wrong things that he believes, and you can tell. And that's bad. So it's like, I think you actually just don't understand the science about vaccines. So listen, I'm being nice. You are an idiot. I believe you. So just to lay that out. But that's bad still. You are responsible for not being an idiot. Kind of.
I started doing heroin when I went to the top of my class.
And so you need to inform yourself if you're going to be in such an important position of power. So you can still blame people even if they genuinely believe bad things. Like Marjorie Greene believes a lot of genuinely bad things. And I think she...
Kiss my ass.
There we go. And I think she says crazy stuff and believes it. Still bad. And they have responsibility. There is an extra layer of rage I have for people who admit privately this bill is going to be devastating and they vote for it because they're more scared of Trump than they are of their voters. Greg Sargent said, not that anyone cares, but now that J.D. Vance has cast the tie-breaking vote for $1 trillion in Medicaid cuts, I'm re-upping these Vance quotes from 2017 in which he flatly declared that cuts like these betray Trumpism's promises to the working class. This was last time Trump was pushing, in that case, he didn't succeed, but pushing to rip millions of people off their health care. And Vance was critical of it, but now he was the tie-breaking vote. Then speaking of Marjorie Taylor Greene, she was on Steve Bannon saying this is a quote-unquote shit show.
We're taking a Medicaid away from American citizens and maybe still paying for illegal aliens. Is the House going to rubber stamp this? Is it going to be like a 24-hour turnaround, ma'am?
I cannot imagine. No, I can't imagine they have the vote. There's no way that Johnson has the votes in the House for this. We're supposed to be back Wednesday morning to start voting at 9 a.m., I think that is not realistic. I just don't see how that's possible. So this is, I think it's far from over. It is really a dire situation. We're on a time clock that's been really set on us, so we have a lot of pressure. And then also given the fact that there's 435 members of Congress, and it's hard for us to get to an agreement on anything. So this whole thing is, I don't know what to call it. It's a show. And I'm sorry for saying that. I know we're not supposed to say that on the air, but that's truly what it is.
She's going to vote for it. She's going to vote for absolutely. She voted for the first time. Her only stipulation was that she didn't like the AI provision. I didn't like it either. And that got taken out in the Senate. I should update you. In part because of Marjorie's pressure, so whatever, credit. But she's going to end up voting for this bill. That's my prediction. This visual gives you a sense of the difference of all of the independent and nonpartisan and different institutions that are estimating the growth that will be generated by this bill. Because the argument from them on the debt is, no, if the economy grows so significantly, they're estimating 5% change. Oh gosh. If it grows so substantially, then that extra wealth, even if taxed at a lower rate, will bring in more revenue. And in some cases, that can happen. If there's taxes that are too high, you lower them, and that gives people more innovative, prosperous endeavors or whatever. And then the economy grows more, and then you bring in more revenue, even with a lower rate. That can happen. That's not going to happen here to the degree they think that it is. We saw it fail the first time Trump tried this trickle-down economics approach. And so they're saying, well, yeah, it looks like this is going to add $3 trillion to the debt over a decade, but that's because they aren't taking into account how much the economy is going to grow during that time because of the bill. But look at the difference between what the White House's estimation is of the growth, and I'm only smiling and laughing so that I don't just start killing puppies. I don't know. I keep saying that. You're going to think, does Luke have a problem with dogs? Is he like Trump? Kill him like a dog. It's so gross. Got killed dead like a dog. No, I don't have a hatred of dogs. I just think it's the most provocative example. I'm going to be too angry, so I just have to sort of, this is crazy. So podcast listeners, big difference is how I would describe it. The growth generated, let me do this in sort of Trump noises. The growth generated, estimated by every actual credible institution is boom. The growth generated, according to the White House, in their estimation is bing, boom. So very different. Look at that. No one's even in their orbit. So we're supposed to trust.
Give me a joke.
Yeah, that this is not a joke, and that it's very serious. I don't believe it.
And you know what I told him, Mr. President? I said, Scooter, there are only two things I have to do in this world. Be cool and die.
Share your thoughts in the comments.